Rob Campbell, a chartered accountant and auditor, who now spends most of his time advising other accountancy practices as a consultant, how to run their businesses, their workflow, about their staffing, etc. So Rob, what do you think has brought about this high stress level, particularly in accounting firms, but particularly with principals of those accounting firms?
Well, thank you for having me once again, Mark, and it's a pleasure to be here. The main problem has been staff. Staffing is a problem, especially getting the quality of staff that accountants need, being able to rely upon staff to do a complete and accurate job. But not only that, staff turnover. Accounting firms find that no matter what they do to try to retain staff, they leave for any number of reasons, and that's their right under the Australian system. So staffing is the largest problem, and that's what they tell me. That's
right. So with Felcorp Accounting Support, of course, we provide that staff. We worry about whether we have a change of staffing. We fill in that gap if we need to. They're supervised, etc. Probably more important, just picking up on what you just said though, is that the level of experience and the expertise that we can offer is way above those unqualified people that are in the accounting firm. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of principals are worried about allocating jobs to those unqualified staff. They just don't do the job or can't do the job.
Well, they are, and unfortunately it just puts more and more financial and mental stress on the principals. They lose confidence in their staff often, and they just feel that they have to do it themselves. And
so they're doing those mundane jobs themselves, where they could be earning a lot more with fees, giving advice.
Precisely. And this is accentuated when they lose that staff member who's not quite up to scratch, or considerably not up to scratch. And there's a time gap between then and employing the next accountant who may or may not be up to scratch. And so the workload is extended out, it builds up, and they get more and more stressed for two reasons. Firstly, the workload's not being done, and secondly, they're not turning the client into money.
And these days, of course, there's a lot more deadlines than there used to be.
A lot more deadlines with the ATO, BAS returns, fines for not getting things in. And of course,
that's stress itself if there's fines, because the client's going to say, well, it's your fault, you didn't complete it in time.
And that happens all the time. That happens all the time. The accountant wears the cost, and let's face it, it's their fault. They haven't been able to get the work done in time. There's a fine imposed, and the client says, well, I had the stuff to you months before.
And so you've actually recommended our services, Felcorp Accounting Support, to some accounting firms. How are they going with that? Are they overcoming the problem because of the outsourcing of
Well, they certainly do. And I remember clearly one particular accounting firm where a load was lifted off their shoulders, and they were able to get their work turned around extremely quickly. They are able to get their work in progress billed, and they are able to get the money in a lot quicker because the client was happy. In my experience, and unfortunately, I fell for this myself in practice, and that is that if you leave things too long, the client gets annoyed with you. The client, when they get the bill, because they're annoyed, will say that the bill's too high. They will then not pay it quickly enough, and they will forget about all the good stuff you did.
And if you've given them the bill 2 months late, they don't feel any pressure to pay it 2 months late as well.
It's that pressure, and as I said, they've forgotten about the work that was done.
So getting good cash flow for any accounting firm is the difference between just surviving financially and prospering, really.
Oh, my word, on two fronts. Firstly, with the existing workload that they've got, And secondly, with it being able to go out there and do more marketing, and for example, being able to get clients that they choose to get.
Yes, target those.
They target those clients
where they can provide advice and charge higher fees, or even within their own even their own clients, to provide more services they haven't had time to provide.
Precisely, and the clients love it.
Yeah,
the clients love their accountant saying, "There's something I want to talk to you about. I want to."
They can be proactive.
Be proactive. I want to help you grow your business.
Yeah.
I've got some ideas. Can we have a monthly meeting?
That's great. Yeah.
And
I know we've got an example of that where an accountant said he hadn't done any marketing for years and years, and after using the support, took on something like 20 new clients in a 6-month period. So it does happen. It really does work. So so getting back to that stress, etc., on those principles. The principles are the ones that they're in the firing line, aren't they? I mean, it doesn't matter what the employee does or doesn't do. They're the ones who are going to cop it in the end, aren't they?
Oh, they're responsible. They hold the ticket.
That's right.
And they're responsible to the authorities,
Yep.
the various authorities, and they've got no excuse.
Right. So outsourcing, using our support system or any other, the outsourcing works because you're allocating work that's mundane, and the principal can actually charge higher fees doing more important work. Is that the end message for that? Or
that's the message.
Yep.
And an additional message is that they can do more work for their existing clients, which the clients love,
Yep.
which is a retention tool, and they can go out and, as I said earlier, they can go and choose. They can target new clients of the type that they want to target.
Yes, that's very important.
And give better service to them.
And in the short term, the monetary gain in the short term is if you've got work in progress, and we see accountants all the time, they've got $100,000, $200,000 of work in progress that we've been able to bring up to date, and of course get the money in quicker, and takes pressure off financially, takes pressure off from their clients, annoying them about it, complaining about it, and eventually that leads to a happier practice and a practice which is going forward, because unfortunately we see so many practices that aren't going forward. They're simply treading water, and we would like to see them swim to the edge of the pool and get out.
Yeah, that's right. and getting back to one of the earlier questions you asked me, Mark, the staffing is the problem.
Yeah.
That when I talk to accountants, that's their biggest problem. When I say what is the thing that's concerning you most, it's always staff. Felcorp alleviates that problem.
Well, of course, apart from just doing the mundane work, we've got senior accountants, we've got junior accountants, we've got accountants all the way through to people with multi-degrees in accounting who've been doing Australian accounting for, well, I think someone's up to 15 years. So, and I think we spoke about this before in an earlier video, that some of the people that we're supplying are actually more experienced, they told you, than the accounting principals themselves.
Well, that's right. Yeah, 100%. They might have the qualification, but at the end of the day, as we said a minute ago, the Australian accountant is the responsible person, or the accounting firm is the responsible entity, and what the Felcorp system provides is, if you like, the back room, right, for the principals to be able to concentrate more on reviewing the work and all the good things that I mentioned earlier.
And it takes a little bit of time to get used to the system, but very quickly, more time available, more income coming in, and a happier practice, as I said, that moves forward and not just treading water.
And you don't have the staffing problems.
Yes. Thanks very much. I think that probably sums it all up. And thank you again for coming in, Rob.
A pleasure, Mark.
Thanks.